Recognize myself for 5 minutes for the purpose of asking questions. If I can just begin at the top here, Mr. Skinner, about how you choose through what the matters that you're investigating. Is it the legitimacy of the complaints, the author, the subject matter? What drives that?
That's a great question. So we have a number of avenues for issues to be brought forward to our attention, and that includes the media, that includes our hotline portal, that includes a number of complaints. We have a thorough process internally. If an issue comes to us, the number one, like I said earlier, some issues do not belong in our swim lane. The number one thing we do is, does this involve an FEC program, process, or individual? Does it affect an FEC, conduct? Step two would be, if so, is there merit to the allegation? So if the allegation is true, does it violate a rule or standard? So those are just two quick steps that we discuss internally before we move forward in any preliminary inquiry or investigation.
So then in there, how do you deal with frivolous complaints? It sounds like they're weeded out at the front end?
Correct. Yes, we meet weekly with our senior investigators, and our counsel and deputy IG oversees everything.
And if you were to investigate a commissioner, when that decision is made, do you have contact with other commissioners, and how is that commissioner notified? Walk me through how that process would play out.
So I think sometimes it just depends on the matter at the time. We usually wouldn't reach out to a commissioner if they're the subject of the case. We'd like to interview them at the end once we have interviewed the relevant witnesses, obtained all the relevant documentation. So it just kind of depends on the case that comes in and what the issue is that we're looking at. If it's severe, of course, we'll bring it to their attention.
The ranking member just asked about the investigation into Commissioner Traynor. Mm-hmm. What's the bottom line of that investigation?
So the bottom line is he didn't participate, so we had to go on the relevant facts that we had already obtained, witness testimony, documentary testimony, things like that. So we had the standard of proof for us in an administrative investigation is preponderance of the evidence. Mm-hmm. So if the case led to a not substantiated allegation in that case, but we would have liked to ask Commissioner Traynor to clarify some of those things.
But at the end of the day, it was not substantiated?
We didn't have enough information to substantiate that.
So there was at the end of the day, there was no preponderance of the evidence?
No, that's correct.
And the report suggests that Commissioner Traynor's counsel participated, as you said, but when commissioners and investigators, how do they usually engage with your office?
If we've investigated a commissioner, is that the question?
Well, you noted that Commissioner Traynor did not participate in the investigation. His counsel did not participate in the investigation. Okay. Yeah. How does a commissioner traditionally, I'm assuming there's a contrast in your opinion then as to how a commissioner would traditionally engage in an investigation?
Typically, we get cooperation from the commission and all the employees of the agency. They respond to our inquiries and they respond to our requests for information and for interviews, typically.
Okay. In the 2024, shifting gears here, in the 2024 budget request, you asked for about $2 million in the aggregate for operations, $40,000 of that for training, about $8,000 of that amount to support the council, the inspector generals on integrity and efficiency. How should Congress look at that request in the context of the appropriations? And you shared some of your numbers earlier.
Yeah, for the IG and FY23, I'll be clear, we had sufficient budget in FY23 to conduct the work. Like the agency, a lot of our funds are tied up in personnel and benefits, but we do have some mandated assignments that we have to complete each year. So we asked for that amount. That would be sufficient enough for us to carry out our mission.
And does your office have a sufficient number of employees to carry out its mission?
Yes, we do. We have eight employees on staff.
So it's not a headcount issue as it relates to your investigation?
No headcount issues, no resource issues on our end currently. However, it's a small office. It wouldn't take much turnover to disrupt operations. So we are a firm believer in cross-training initiatives and utilizing the SIGI community, the OIG community of 14,000 employees.
One thing I've heard about, shifting gears again, one thing I've heard about as it relates to the FEC, I've had a couple people mention to me a recurring question as it relates to X, the internet service formerly known as Twitter. I don't know how many people yet call it X. But an account, Alt FEC, much of the public, I think, believes that it may be a commissioner or a staff member working in a government agency, a federal employee that runs the account. Have you ever looked into that matter?
That is something we have not looked into, but of course, if there's additional information that your staff has, we'd be happy to hear it.
Has it ever been brought to your attention?
It has not been brought to our attention.
Not been brought to your attention. Fair enough. There's been colloquial comments to me that maybe people were misusing the government time or government resources is that, but I do not have evidence of that. I just share it. I was curious if that is something that had been brought to your attention. One final question for you as it relates to the underlying powers of your office, as it relates to subpoenaing documents that you don't have subpoena authority. Is that accurate?
Testimonial subpoena authority, that is accurate.
And would you believe that subpoena authority, which Congress would need to provide, would that be helpful?
I think it'd be extremely helpful in our work.
Why?
I know,
I mean,
so
go ahead.
what, case in point, we could speak with the commissioner. Our role is to obtain the facts. Right? We are fact finders. We cannot propose corrective action. We cannot take corrective action. We are fact finders, so if someone refuses to speak with us or work with us, that's an issue. We have some requirements in the IG Act. This is an OIG SIGI issue. This is one of 6 legislative priorities the IG community is pursuing with this Congress. So it would help us in a number of ways. It would help us if an employee retires and they don't have an obligation to speak with us and they have key facts relevant to the case. We'd like to use testimonial subpoena authority to get that information. So it would greatly increase, not only help our independence, but support the fact-finding efforts and the work that we do.
And other inspector generals have this authority. Is that
The
correct?
majority
or
of
is this
them do
usually
not.
the case?
That they do not. There may be, I think there's 1 or 2 special
Special cases that have it where in general that is not held by the inspector general.
Correct.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony here today, enlightening as we think and work to further strengthen and make sure that the FEC is carrying out its mission. I appreciate you being here today. And I'd like to thank all of our witnesses for appearing before us. It's been incredibly helpful. Members of the committee may have some additional questions for you. We ask you please respond to those questions in writing. Without objection, each member will have 5 legislative days to insert additional material into the record or to advise and extend their remark. If there's no further business, I thank the members for their participation. I thank the witnesses for their participation. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
Thank you.